So it's been just about 24 hours since I painted the guitar with the black, 3 coats of black paint. I had waited a whole week before applying each color. So I'd apply the white, wait a week, play the red, wait a week, and then apply the black. That's where we're at. As of yesterday, I'd finished 3 coats of black on top of the red after taping it with the blue tape to make the stripes. So my concern was, do I take the tape off when it's sort of dry to the touch, which it is now, or do I wait a week, in which case the paint, I'm not sure if cure is the right word for this kind of paint for nitrocellulose, but let's say it is. In other words, does it more fully dry? It will more fully dry after a week. Do I wait until that happens before I pull the paint off? Or do I take the paint off while it's still dry, but not fully dry, like not hardened? So I looked at a few videos. I've seen some videos where most of the videos you see on YouTube deal with houses and, drawing lines on walls and that kind of thing. So what I thought I would do is take an inconspicuous spot. So this is just where the neck joint is at the back of the guitar, and see if I were to pull off that little piece of tape, what kind of line would I get? Is it jagged? Is it not? I mean, to a certain extent, if it looks jagged really, really close up, who cares? If it looks jagged from, 8 feet away, that's a different matter. So what I'm going to do is put on my reading glasses again so I can get a better view of things. When I get this close to a guitar with my eyes, like 6 inches away, it's sometimes worse than when I'm further away. But what I'm seeing, now let me put some more light on the subject. Yeah, what I'm seeing is a pretty good line. There's a bit of black. That's just black that got under the tape. That's not black that's the result of pulling the tape off. And I think that line's coming off nice and crisply. So what I'm going to do is slowly and gradually pull the tape off that I put on yesterday. And then we'll think about what to do with the circles. I'm not as confident about getting those off because the red paint has been on for, at this point, 8 days on top of the circles. So let's see what we can do taking the striped tape off of the guitar and see if we're going to run into a real problem or if this is going to meet with some success. Now I've seen in some videos people saying that you want to pull this tape off on a bit of a 45-degree angle as compared to the where it's been put on. This is a bit of a tricky spot coming off this corner. It's going to go very gradually around this bend here. All right, good. All right, so we're just coming out of the curve where your hand goes in the in here, coming around where it's going to flatten out onto the back of the guitar. Okay, so it looks like from this angle, this horizontal tape went on first. So I'm going to have to take the strips off that went this way first. Some people love to hear themselves. This looks to be coming off nicely. That's just the green dot underneath. I'm not worried about that. Looking good. So that line is coming along pretty crisply. I'm happy with that. I'm going to do the rest of the guitar now, and we'll just check back every few stripes or so. And that is the back. These jags here, where are we here? Things like these. That's just the round painter's tape. That'll come off later. Hopefully we'll see underneath a nice white spot, a nice white round circle. But I'm pretty happy with the crispness of these lines. I think we made the right move by pulling the painter's tape off 24 hours after painting the last color. All right, so the side that matters more, of course, the front side. We'll get started on this, and I'll show progress here and there, but I'm hoping the thing works as well as it did on the back. I didn't have any tears of the black paint. Okay, just a quick break here. I was pulling the tape off, and I actually had one example or one instance of the circle tape sticking to the stripe tape. And so now we've got our first inclination, or sorry, our first indication of what the final product will look like, at least before the clear coat goes on. I'm going to show you right now where that dot came off. There it is. And that's exactly what I want. So hopefully when those other circles come off, that will be the final product. A red hatch with the crossover is basically covered by the edges of the white circle. All right, so having taken off the stripe tape, next came the issue of how to get these little circular bits of tape out. There on top of the white layer, the red layer was painted on top of them. Then the tape went on and the black layer went on top of the tape. So the tape came off relatively easy because I could find an end, and once I had an end I could just pull it off. But these little circular things are a bit more tricky because around the edge of them there's red paint that's got a thickness. Not very thick, not a millimeter thick, but thick enough that you sort of have to somehow get past the red paint under the sticker and lift the sticker up without damaging the white underneath. I've tried a number of things. I tried using some, duct tape. I thought maybe it'd be stickier than the stickiness of the dot to the paint, but so much for that. That didn't work out. I even went back. Of course, this wasn't going to work, but I just gave it a shot anyway. I went and got some of that sticky tack that I had used to put the dots on in the first place. Of course, that didn't make any sense, but I just thought I'd give it a whack anyway. Then I went to more physical means. Okay, so this X-Acto knife, or art knife, I don't know what they're calling it, but it's very, very sharp and very, very pointy. Now I could get the point with a little effort. I could get the point under the edge of a dot, but it was taking 10 to 30 seconds to find the edge. And even then, there was a lot of retrying and retrying and retrying. And each time I did that, there was a risk that this point was going to damage the white underneath. And in fact, on this one and this one, you can see this little tiny dot there and a little tiny dot there. Well, that's a gouge out of the white paint with this thing. So I've given up on it. And instead I've tried just good old fingernails. And as it turns out, there's two virtues of that. One, the fingernail tends not to cut the paint. It certainly doesn't cut the paint that's underneath, the white paint. And also you can feel that edge of the circle with your fingernail. You can feel a little click and you hit it. So unlike, the razor where you can kind of feel a click, but it's not really got the same feedback as a fingernail does. This gives me an advantage. So I'll just show you what I did to take off this one and this one. I'll take off this one here. I can feel the edge of it right there. My fingernail sort of clicks around it. You can see I can pull off some of the red paint. That's just on top of the sticker. I'm digging in where the red stripe is, not at the intersection, but at the top, because the curvature of my nail will match the curvature to some degree of the sticker. And so I won't be pulling a line across a thing that should be circular or curved. Once I get a bit of an edge, my nails aren't the longest, I can grab it and then turn it gradually all the way around the circle so that I'm cutting the paint nicely along the periphery of the circle, and there you go. So that's the way I'm going to do all of the circles, just with my fingernail. It seems the safest and most accurate, and actually the fastest way to get it done, even though that's pretty tedious. So I'm just going to keep going on this, and once I've got this side done, I'll show it to you, and then I'll flip it over and we'll do the front. All right, so there it is. I've done the back. You won't be able to see it at this distance, but there's some tiny little scratches, 2 of them, where my fingernail kind of scraped the black paint, which is not as cured as the rest, but you can already see if you pay attention, even though there's a lot of black spaces here where the tremolo goes and the electronics will go. If you sort of put your eyes toward the middle of the guitar, you should start to see the white dots blinking. They appear to turn black. All right, so let's flip it over now, and we'll start removing the circular dots from the front of the guitar. Actually, as it turns out, those are not scratches. Those are flakes of red paint, which I can just brush off. So that's a great relief to me. I thought, oh boy, I'm gonna have to do touch-ups, and nope. All right, last dot on the guitar to be removed, right here. She's making me work for it. And there we go. Okay, so we're back to the paint tent. The guitar has had a week to, the paint has had a week to dry, the black paint. All right, so here we are after 3 coats of clear coat. It doesn't really look any different than when we started. There might be a few spots where, you know, they got more clear coat than others, although I don't see any drips or anything like that. All right, so the weather cooperated today, and I was able to put 3 more coats of clear coat on. Nothing fantastic to see either in the process or in the result, but just to give you an idea, there's, you know, more or less you can sort of see right here, it looks kind of, oh, like you would expect for a spray. You know, you can see a texture there. That will come off when I wet sand, but that doesn't happen until I've got 9 coats of clear coat on. All right, so I just finished the 9th coat. That took 3 days. Now it's not shiny per se at this point. It's not supposed to be. It's not smooth at this point. It's not supposed to be. You can see, you know, sort of a texture. The light hits it just right. You can sort of see the texture of the paint. That will all be sanded, wet sanded, and then there will be, that'll just create a rough smoothing of it, an approximate smoothing of it. I didn't want to go cheap right here. Right here is a trouble spot for sanding. There's so much of an angle right there, you can see right there. And I've seen videos of people trying to sand there, and they cut right through the clear coat and you know, damage the paint underneath, so I don't want that to happen. There's some overhead light we can catch on it. That'll give you an idea of what it looks like. That's kind of an orange peel look to it. All right, so it's been over a week. In fact, I think it's been 2 weeks since I put 9 coats of clear coat over top of the 3 coats of white, 3 coats of red, and 3 coats of black. So there are currently 18 coats of paint on here. And at this stage, the clear coat, it has, you might be able to see it in the camera, it's got a sort of a texture to it. Not quite like sandpaper, but bumpy. You know, I think they would call it almost approaching orange peel. Not quite as deep as that, but so what we're doing at this, what we're going to do at this stage is sand lightly the unevenness. In other words, the peaks and valleys need to be brought more or less into a flat plane before putting more clear coat on and sanding again and putting more clear coat on and buffing. So in one of the videos I've been watching, it was a StuMac video, the experts who were demonstrating how to do it were using 600 grit, and they said you should use 600 grit at this point. However, and probably just to make a point, at one point the junior of the 2 people working on the guitar sanded just a little tiny, you know, 1/2 centimeter long bit of paint off so you could see the wood underneath, and they had to do a repair. I'm terrified that this is, this is my first attempt to do any sanding of, well, of anything, in terms of furniture, in terms of painted furniture, and bringing it to a dull, flat finish. So I'm not going to use the 600 grit that made it possible to go through that point so easily, because it's points are always going to be burned through a lot easier. But I'm going to use 800 grit. If I can't get to where I need to go with 800, maybe I'll resort back to the 600, which is a rougher grain. But for now, I'm going to just stick with the slightly finer grained 800 and see if I can get this sufficiently, leveled off. All I need to do is create like a dull, even surface. And so let's go to it. Now, before doing that, I have to make sure that the wooden parts, the parts of the guitar that might still be somewhat exposed. I mean, a lot of this has been painted with the nitrocellulose, but there are parts perhaps in here, just along this wall or in these walls, where the paint hasn't necessarily covered the wood all that much. And rather than have the water that needs to be used when wet sanding a guitar like this get into the wood and possibly swell it, possibly get under the finish and lift it, I'm going to be putting all these cavities, filling all these cavities with masking tape, painter's tape, and that should help keep the worst of the water intrusions from happening. So let's get to that. I'm going to overlap the tape somewhat just to ensure that I'm not leaving any gaps where the water might get through. All right, so I've got the control cavity taped in. However, there's a very thin lip of wood, about just about that thick right there. And if water were to get onto this tiny little edge, which is even skinnier, it's about like that, I think it could do some damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a row of tape or a piece of tape around this edge as well, just sort of like an overhang. Maybe I can curl it under. We'll see how it goes. All right, so that's where I'm going to leave that. There's just a flappy edge here, but at least this top part where there are screw holes, etc., is protected from the water. Now I'm going to flip it over. We'll do the other side. All right, so we've got blue tape in these pockets. It's not very tight. It's not very sticky. These here, now I do not want to have any, especially here, these are screw holes for the whammy bar. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of tape. I'm going to cover that. This part of the guitar is going to be underneath some hardware anyway. It doesn't matter if it's finished the same as the rest. So to protect the ridge of wood around here, to protect the holes, I'm going to put a piece of tape over the holes and over the opening there that goes through the body for the hardware. I'm using the 800 instead of the 600 that I've seen in a video used. This is the texture. I don't know if you can make it out very well, but it's very, very fine. It's, well, it's probably not much more resistant than skin itself, but it is a grit. And I'm using a 3M sanding block as well. And I haven't tried this yet, but you'll see that you can lift this flap somewhat. And these are like teeth inside. You put the paper, poke the teeth through the paper, run it underneath the flap, bring it back around the other side, poke it underneath the teeth there. And then you should have a nice even surface that you're sanding with. So let's go ahead with that. I'm just going to cut it to length. I think I should be able to, cut it this way. Probably get 3 or 4 strips out of it. All right, so that worked pretty well. I managed to, you might be able to see the teeth in there. Get the paper in there, squeeze here, that poke the teeth through the paper. The paper's just slightly wider than it's been cut slightly wider than the block, and then I've brought it across, kept it nice and tight against the bottom as I'm tucking it into this side, and then again breaking the paper with the teeth on the other side. All right, so I need to first squeegee some water on the surface that I'm working on. I'm going to work on probably quarters at a time. I'm going to avoid these curves for the time being. I'm going to stick to the flat bits of the guitar. The curves are where if you put too much pressure, you're more likely to burn through. So again, I'm going to go across the flatter bits and I'll work on the curves probably with a finger later on, just lightly. wish me luck. I'm going to start right in this central area here. I'm going to make sure I've applied water just to either side as well, so that I'm not burning through the areas that I don't intend to sand at this point. I'm just letting the weight of the block carry it. I'm not pushing down. And I'm looking to see whether I'm making any progress at all, just bit by bit, compared to the parts that I'm not sanding yet. Apparently there will be a kind of a milky, there it goes, a milky appearance when you get to the stuff you're trying to sand. So it is doing its job, maybe not as quickly as 600 grit would do, but I am getting some result. So I'm going to just take a quick look to see where I'm at by using a shop cloth just to dry off what I've done, and I can see already a dullness, which is what I want, as compared to here. So I'm just going to keep going slow and steady here. I need to get basically a bowl into which to take the, you'll see the nitrocellulose that's coming off is on the sandpaper still. I don't want to rub it all over the body, so I'm going to have a bowl set up right over here where I can dip the block in. All right, so we've got our little bucket of water over here. I'm going to take the whole pad and put it in there just to sort of let the loose nitrocellulose come off of the sandpaper. And I'm going to have another look at, yeah, I am making a little bit of progress, and that's all I want to make is a little bit. I'm not in a rush. Again, you can see right here, it looks like spit. That is the nitrocellulose being caught up in the water. Okay, so I'm happy to report that using 800 grit is just fine, but I want to show you what I can see from my level. So I've been focusing on this area here. Now you can still see some kinds of, you see those shiny bits in there, less so here. So I've done a little bit more work here than right along this pocket edge. I was a little bit nervous about the pocket edge. You can see some sanding has been done there. Those flecks are the low points in the clear coat. So I'll probably do a bit more work there. The stripes and the dots are lower, right? Because they are lower levels of paint. So even though I've put clear coat on the whole thing, they're stepping down, right? I mean, the white dots, there's three coats of paint plus 9 coats of clear coat, whereas on the black there's 9 coats of paint and 9 coats of clear coat. So it's probably not going to be the case that the red stripes and the white dots will be at this point made flat. But you can see this. Now I want to compare this area, which I have been working on for probably only about 5 to 10 minutes, with an area I haven't done at all. Okay, so you can see the difference there. I haven't sanded at all. You can see pretty well the texture of the clear coat. I'll just go back. So that's what we've done. We've sort of knocked it down, taken off the shine. You know, we've got a pretty good beat down of the orange peel. And if you want to see the difference, I mean, there's the tummy cut right there, okay? And you can see the line right there where the light just doesn't reflect the same way. Just a quick note on the paper itself. You can see after a while the nitro gets sort of embedded in the sandpaper. So having done one side with this particular piece of paper, I'm going to take this off now and put a fresh one on to do the front side. This is proving to be a bit of a difficult zone right here. It's so narrow. It's still smooth considerably though. Along here, that's a bit tricky in here. But if you use a feel test, you can really feel it. You can feel the difference between that and, you know, something like this. It's much, much smoother. And I think that's really just the point, to knock the hills and valleys out of it, not to polish it at this stage. I'll try and get a little closer here. That's just a bit of water. All right, so I've been hand sanding this belly carve for only about 2 minutes. Just on the flat spots. And you'll see that I've still got a seam along here that's shiny. That's where I'm not sanding, okay? So it's giving me a good idea of whether I'm going over into that dangerous territory where if you start sanding on that thin seam, you're into some very fast ripping up of the clear coat. All right, so moment of truth. Here's the tummy cut, belly carve, and I've taken the ridge of shine off that, you know, where it radically bends, just by hand, and it's taken, you know, 6 to 10 strokes of the sandpaper, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. I'm just going to do up here now. This is going to be the most difficult part, that little point right there. So one thing I noticed you can do is when you're getting really close, don't apply much water if any at all. Like have your sandpaper, you know, damp, wet, but just do a 1, 2, 1, 2, have a look, 1, 2, have a look, 1, 2, have a look, and it knocks it down so fast that you needn't go through a whole process of, you know, soaking the whole, wetting the whole area and scraping away like 10, 15 strokes. It doesn't take that. And if you do it nice and dry, you can sort of see what you're taking off while you're doing it. Well, okay, I've done, I believe, the entire guitar. Almost everywhere where the angle's really, really tight, it takes just like one stroke to take off the paint. So you'll see right there, right where that thin little blade of wood, where the neck pocket is, one little push off that just sort of skimmed that paint off, or that clear coat end paint off. I had one right here where it just, again, right on the corner. I think it's just the weight, you know, the pounds per square inch, and it's very difficult to work in there. You can see I probably have to do a little bit more work in here, like a few seconds work. That's all it is. And then I have one other spot. Where is it? Oh yes, right. If you can see it, right on that tip, right on that corner. I'll tell you this: I would not use the 600 grit, given that those little tiny nicks I showed you were possible even with 800 grit. This took arguably about 2 hours of work. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But this is rock and roll. This is not furniture. Apart from perhaps doing a couple touch-ups, and those down here in the pocket and right there, I think I'm ready to add the next bit of clear coat. All right, so I got the areas taped up here, right there. I'm going to make sure I don't go beyond the blue tape. Just make sure I put the black back over the red there. Lift just a bit of tape here. I'm going to put red on that little bit there. I just noticed this bit here. I don't know whether that's going to actually show, but I'll try and, I'm not going to tape that per se. It's because it's part black, part red. Right here, I've got a little bit of tape to cover that edge right there. I'm going to put that in black. Right there, I've left myself some room to air, so I can put black in the vicinity as well as on the exact spot. And then I've got the spot right there taped. I think I'm just going to go with red for that whole square, for that whole area. And that tape in a little bit more firmly. All right, so I've gone outside because nitrocellulose is not friendly. And you can see I sprayed a little bit into this glass bottle for the black, another bottle for the red. I went to the dollar store and I got myself some paint brushes. These are camel hair. Some of the others were synthetic, and I didn't know if they'd hold up with the paint. And I think I'm going to start by using the reds. Fixing the red spots. So that's it for that one. And that's it for that. I'm going to paint that red. I'm going to catch this little part here that's red. Catch this piece here. And I think that's everything. Get a different brush and do the black. That's it for that one. And then I'll do this piece here. Okay, I'm going to leave that for 5 minutes. So I'm ready for tomorrow. I'm going to let this sit overnight. That's more than enough time. And we'll be ready to put 3 coats of clear coat on. So here I've got the touch-ups. I'm not going to go anywhere near those. They are probably dry, but I just don't want to come near them at this point until there's 3 coats of clear coat on. But for the rest of this guitar, since I've sanded it, I don't know what kind of particles there are. I can see some right here, for example. And they've got to be removed before I put the clear coat on, or else they'll become part of what's sealed in with the clear coat. So first thing I'm going to do is run a tack cloth over top, just to pick up any loose stuff that I can. It's just, I can already see little flecks of stuff that are coming off. That's good. If you look in the pocket here, not the pocket, but you know, the pickup cavity, that white stuff, that is a powdery substance, and it is basically the harder part of the paint. So the stuff that's in the liquid of the paint that sticks to the guitar, the nitrocellulose, presumably it's cellulose, but that powdery substance, because it's there, we can assume that it's also all over the surface of the paint. And so therefore we need some way of cleaning the paint before we go over it with the clear coat. We've taken the particulate off with the tack cloth, but seeing as it does not appear we can get naphtha in Canada anymore, at least not, I mean, you can get camp fuel and God knows what they put in that. They don't, it contains naphtha, but it doesn't say it is naphtha. And so I can't really find any product anymore in Canada that I can access that is just naphtha. So I'm using, again, this solvable brand mineral spirits, which is a fairly light cleaning product. And I'll do it on the back first, just in case there's any reaction, but I have already tested it in this pocket here, and there's no problem, no paint came off or anything like that. So it's not, doesn't seem to be reacting with the finish, which is exactly what we want. We just want to clean the finish, we don't want to react to it. So I'm just using some blue shop cloth, fold it once or twice, apply the mineral spirit to the shop cloth, not to the guitar. And then I'm just going to wipe it down lightly. You can see when you do that, it brings out what will be a shine later on when the polishing process is done. But right now it's just the look of wet paint. And I'm going to dry that off. And I'm going to allow that side just to gas off before I turn it over and do the other side. All right, so that's dry. We're going to turn it over now, do the other side. All right, so I've applied 3 coats of clear coat after having sanded the guitar yesterday. And I did do some touch-ups, as you know. So let's just have a quick look to see whether those touch-ups are as obvious now. The main one was right here, the big area where I kind of lightly burned through, and it's looking more or less like the rest. So repair totally effective there. There was this burn through here. Now that is structurally a little bit coarser, so it's going to be, I don't know if it'll ever be perfect, but it's not even going to be noticeable because the guitar neck's going to be on there distracting and everything else. This came out nicely. The line's nice and crisp again. On the back, we've got, let's see. Oh yes, we had this part right here where the corner had been knocked off, so that's back on. We had a little nick on the corner here. That's gone now. So I'm pretty happy with this. Just to give you a sense of what it looks like with 3 coats on, let's do a little much more close view. I'll bring some light on the subject and see if we can get, there we go. So it's not quite what I would call orange peel anymore. It's because of the sanding, it's been brought down level somewhat. This is more like, well, maybe light grains of sand. And that's all going to get sanded tomorrow with 1000 grit. All right, so this is the day after putting the 3 coats, well, sanding and then adding 3 coats of clear coat. Looks pretty good. And today I've got to sand again, wet sand again, using, this time I'm going to use 1000 grit. I used 800 grit yesterday before putting on the 3 coats. This time we're going to use 1000 grit. And I was thinking about, the rationale for why was there 9 coats of clear and then sanding and then 3 coats of clear and now sanding and then 2 coats of clear. And the answer, I think, isn't that difficult to explain. When you have 9 coats of clear coat on here, I think the problem is that the peaks and valleys are taller than if there were, say, only 3 coats. And so you have to be a bit more aggressive to take off the peaks of the clear coat when there's 9 coats of clear coat. So you take those peaks off. Now if to the touch it feels fairly smooth, you put 3 coats of clear coat on, and you end up with something that's not as rough as the 9 coats were. And so you don't need to cut down as much. The peaks are not as high compared to the valleys as was the case earlier. And so now we need a finer grit because we're taking off smaller peaks. When that's done, again, by going to 2 coats of clear coat and then leaving it for 2 to 4 weeks, the peaks and valleys hopefully will be minimized, and we can just use very high grades of sandpaper and/or polish to finish the job and hopefully bring this finish up to glass. I'm using this stuff here. Wet, dry, sorted pieces, 1000, 1500, 2000, and 3000 grit. So I'm going to be using the 1000 grit. Now these are in circles. Unfortunately, that's just the only way they were available to me. So I'm going to have to hope that I've got enough to make it work. This is the backing on it. I'll probably be able to get 2 strips. Yeah, about 2 strips out of it. So I've just tried cutting a disc in half. It is precisely the right width to get from one edge of the 3M block to the point. So the circumference of the circle is coming to the point. So I think I'm going to be fine if I center it correctly. Just going to be right about there. And I've looked to see that the teeth inside here will at least grip some of the paper. So we'll see how it goes. If it slips out, I might have to come up with a different kind of sanding block. So here's where we're at, just on only about 2 to 10 minutes of sanding. This part here has not been sanded. And this part here has. That's the other thing. If you listen really closely, maybe I can even get it on the camera. Not only does it feel different when it's sanded, I mean, you can really see it there. Okay, there's the edge where that has not yet been sanded. There's the sanded. And keeping in mind that I'm still going to be polishing and sanding later, I don't know that I necessarily want to get too, filed down here. I do want to get rid of this. But if you listen to the difference, I'll find a spot here that's not been, okay, so this part here has not been sanded. This part here has. So listen. That's the difference in roughness. All right, so I've put the 1000 grit to it all over. I think I've gotten pretty much everything smoothed out. All right, so this is the guitar 2 weeks after having added the last 2 coats of clear coat. So the paint has had, well, technically 13 days to dry. Not that it, I mean, it's dry almost instantly, but it continues to shrink almost indefinitely. And so they recommend that you give the paint at least 10 days to dry sufficiently that you can wet sand it without, I guess, ruining it or whatever. I mean, we wet sanded it one day following before, so I'm not sure why the recommendation at the last moment, but I think it's that if you were to make a perfect finish, one day after painting, you would end up with a finish that would be more likely to crack after the fact. Better to let it crack or expand or whatever it's going to do in the meantime, and then to polish it, etc., I suppose. Anyway, there's where we're at. You can see in the light over what was a sanded smooth body, we've now got 2 coats of lacquer, and that's the sort of texture we're left with. You best see it maybe right there. And that's what we're going to have to sand flat and then progressively sand with lighter and lighter grades, finer and finer grades, until we've got a surface that's more or less scratch free, at which point we can then start working with the finishing compounds to really, bring it up to a fine polish. I did not like the shape. I was using these. I got them at Canadian Tire. I think it's a brand specific to them. The problem with these was the shape. So they were circular papers. I was able to cut them in half. I could somewhat get them to be hooked in here to those little hooks in the 3M holder, but they wanted to break free. And when they did, the rubber of the block could touch the body. And not that it was ruining the body or anything, but I just don't want that to happen. So I went out, I found out that Michael's, which is a craft shop, has, wet dry sandpaper in the correct grits. So they've got this one that's Craft Smart, that's the name of the brand. So this one came with 2 sheets each of 1000, 1500, and 2000 grit sandpaper. And then they've also got, conveniently enough, sandpaper for 3000, 4000, and 5000 grit. So perfect. That's what we need prior to putting the buffing compound on there. So we're going to get going with the 1000 grit first. I'm not going to start with 800. I'm going to start at 1000. I'm going to take it easy, as I did last time. There's even less clear coat on there than last time. There were 3 coats last time. There are 2 this time, so I don't expect as many peaks as we saw, or at least not peaks that are as tall as they were when we were sanding last time. All right, so I'll stop after doing the 1000 grit and show you how it went, and then we'll move on to 1200, 1500, 2000, 3000, and 5000 grit. All right, so I've finished going over the whole guitar with 1000 grit, and it's more or less all this kind of waxy look. Going by feel, I really don't want to mess with it. I think the chances of me messing up, well, maybe I'll just do that one spot. Okay, sure. But other than that, I don't think I'm going to go any further. I'll just show you what I would do on something like that. Very briefly. That's it. And then take some shop towel. Doing this all with Doing this all with one hand kind of sucks because I'm holding the camera at the same time. But you can see already how I've taken some of that shimmer away. So I think I'm going to leave it. That'll be it for the 1000 grit. Now I've got a choice to make. I can either do the whole guitar again now with 1500 grit, which I have, or I can go over it with, I've got a 1200 grit sandpaper I could use, but it comes on a foam backing. It doesn't attach to a block. So, and I've only got one of them. And my concern is if that becomes clogged with, you know, the lacquer, I won't be able to do the whole guitar in it. So what I think I'm going to do is jump to the 1500 in paper and go from there. I'll do less damage, and frankly, at this point, I mean, if all I had to do was polish it with some polishing compound, I'm sure it would come up beautifully. But I'm going to be a little bit more extreme with the sanding, and we'll take it up to 5000. Okay, so we're starting to see what one might start to call a polish. I know it looks looks like a lot of swirls and whatnot, but the way the light is reflecting off of this is a lot different than it was with the 1000 grit. It's a little bit more sharp. Okay, I've just applied 2000 grit here, and we're starting to see, instead of just a blurred light, we're starting to see the outline. I wonder if we can read it says biolight on it. Let's see if we can read that in the finish. Oh, we're certainly starting to be able to. So I'm quite happy with how this is turning out. Okay, I've just applied 3000 grit sandpaper in here. We'll do our little biolight test. Can we see it in the finish? Yeah, now less so when I go up here because I haven't really done much here yet. You can see it's more scratchy. So the 3000 is taking out a lot of the scratches, not all of the scratches, but that's a far cry from just a crazy white blur. We're getting close to almost a polish. All right, so this is after a pass over with 5000 grit. You can clearly see our lamp reflected in the guitar top. All right, so after a few hours of sanding, we've now got effectively the beginnings of a mirror finish on the guitar. Haven't polished it yet. That'll be tomorrow. I've run out of time today. Now I've got 3 different products from StewMac. Basically 3 grades of polish, 3 different grits. They're effectively like liquid sandpaper. So there's the medium compound, there's the fine, and there's swirl remover. Removes fine sanding scratches from finished top coats and plastic surfaces. Whereas the fine says remove fine sanding scratches from finished top coats and plastic surfaces. They all say the same thing. But it's the fine that I'm going to use. If it doesn't take away any of the scratch marks that were left after the 5000 grain sanding process, I'll go back to the medium and see if I can take out the scratches that way. I'm going to start on the back just to make sure that this product is doing what I want it to do. So I'm going to use a microfiber cloth, not the plush side, but the other side, because it's nice and soft, and I don't want to polish, you know, with a rough cloth. So I'm going to take some of this fine compound, polishing compound, and apply it to the cloth. A little dabble do me until I know what I'm dealing with. And I'm going to start on one area. I guess I'll start right here. I'll run a little test for myself first. I'm going to see what, you know what I'll do is I'll do this area here, and I'll compare it with this area here. I've got some of yesterday's sandpaper rocking and rolling over here. If I'm not mistaken, I think I am starting to see. Oh yeah, it's working. I'll just give you an idea. That's only, as you can see, that's only been a few seconds, maybe a minute of polishing. And already I can see a difference between the reflection of this light here and here. There and here. So I think I'm working with the correct grade. I do not want to go back and use medium if I don't have to, so I'm not going to. I'm going to continue using the fine, and we'll see how it turns out. When I get one side done, we'll report back. All right, so I'm about to do the tummy carve, or the comfort carve here, to polish it. But it's one area I haven't done any polishing on, and it provides a good contrast with 5000 grit not polished yet with the stuff up above. So let's have a look in the light, and hopefully it'll show you what I want to show you. All right, so if we look there, we can see clearly, like a glass, the lamp that I've got hanging up there. Let's see if we can get it to reflect here. And you'll see it's kind of grayed out. Come on, there. Kind of grayed out there. And more like glass there. So the polish is working nicely, Stumac polish. I'm going to continue on. All right, so about 5 minutes of polishing. And now, of course, the problem with the tummy carve is that it's warped. So the whole thing is warped. But you can see already more detail. I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'm not, content to say, hey, let's keep on going, because you can burn through a finish. And there's some less than perfect parts like that, maybe right there. Little zones. But that, I think, was probably due to me being timid with the sanding in an area that is very narrow and right near a curve. And so you go out here where it's more in the open, it's a bit more tight. There we go. Sorry, there was a focus problem. It's not too bad, just a little cloudy right in that little zone right there. Anyway, I think I'm going to switch to the front side now. All right, so I've used the fine, color tone fine polishing compound on this. I've certainly gotten rid of all the scratches from the sandpaper, and we can run a little test here with the biolight. You can see the biolight logo there, and we can see it in the finish. So I'm pretty happy with that. There's some areas where you can see right there it looks a little rougher. I mean, it's not rough at all, it's smooth as glass, but that is not something that could, I think, be repaired by polish. It's the wet sanding. It's in an area where I easily could have burned through the paint and wasn't willing to do it, so I was babying it a little more along these skinnier bits. It's out in the open here where you can feel like you can sort of be more liberal with your stroke, but you can see the nice reflections we're getting on the edges. And so now what I'm going to do is use the final grade, which is the highest grit. In other words, the smallest grit. And that's their swirl remover. And we'll see if that changes anything.